here kind of highlights the different portfolios that's available in Europe across enterprise informatics. So this should sound familiar to you. Radiology, CVI, CI, EMR, and CM. We should probably replace that name with a new name. It's kind of interesting. And the CI&I side of things. So if you look at the CI&I side of things, the orange bar there, the Clinical Insights Manager, is what we will double click on, right? So that's the focus of the presentation.
괜찮으니까 세 번 읽어.
Okay, so before I kind of jump into the whole idea of what is the vision, where we are going, I want to kind of set the stage
세 번 읽어.
very
일단
clearly,
시킨 대로
right?
해.
That if you look back to Roy's decision around forming this whole enterprise informatics, shares vision where it is going from an EI perspective, it's kind of very obvious that data is the new healthcare currency, right? And what has happened in the past is that we have been, the healthcare institutions, specifically hospitals, have been able to get access to data from the medical record side of things. Probably on the imaging side, it's getting better with standards like DICOM and so on and so forth. But the devices side, the patient monitoring devices side, and the bedside devices has always been a challenge, right? To give you a perspective of it, a patient by the bedside will generate, an adult patient will generate a gigabyte of data per day, right? So if you kind of multiply this over a period of number of patients across the hospital, let's say 25 beds or 50 beds or 100 beds, right? So like 100 gigabytes of data per day. The volume is huge. So we did an interesting thing. We went around and asked the customers to say that, hey, how easy it is now that if the data is getting generated, how easy it is for you to capture that data and do something with it. So the customers basically came back and very clearly resonated to us saying that, look, we want that data. We want that data for many of our use cases that we drive, but it's not easy. So I was like, okay, so what do you want to do? So they were like, okay, I want to retrospectively analyze it, but hey, while doing it, don't add the IT headache that comes with managing so much of data. Hey, I'm working on an algorithm and I want to use this data as a sandbox. How do I start to use it? Hey, I want to work on other quality improvement initiatives and so on and so forth. And if you look at this whole idea, data being the currency, and then the customers telling us that, yes, we want the data, yet it is challenging. How do you marry that together and put a vision around it? So CI&I essentially then went ahead and said that, look, the aspect of the data, which basically comes in from the patient bedside, can we take that data to drive the clinical workflow in the ecosystem, right? Through surveillance and applications like that, which can drive the day-to-day operations of it. But you see the purple box at the bottom, which basically says that all this ecosystem generating the data, can we understand that data, what the data is telling us, and feed that insights back into the workflow so that the customers can take advantage of it. So Meredith will kind of walk you through the transitions of what is happening. But before I hand it over to her, two things, right? One is there are different approaches to handling this data, right? Some logically, there are some aspects of customers who are moving towards the cloud, saying I'll walk towards the cloud, and I see cloud as a logical way for me to store data, analyze data, so on and so forth. While some customers or markets are hesitant to that aspect of it, right? For rightful reasons, which I understand. So let's address the
이거 하라고
first
이거.
part of the second part. My bad. The second part of
해
the
일단.
customers who are hesitant to go to the cloud. We'll address that part, and then we will go into the cloud part of it. So let me hand over to Meredith to provide you details on the non-cloud part of it. So go ahead, Meredith. Next one.
체크하지 말고 이거부터 해.
And so you hit the nail on the head and you just touched on it. But I want to establish that there are launch markets that are cloud and there are launch markets that are currently non-cloud. And this is an important distinction because the applications for Clinical Insights Manager that we'll talk about shortly are cloud-based. And Rishi will talk about their vision and the end goal, and it's only a matter of time before cloud is much more widely adopted. But until that time, there are, of course, markets where cloud is not available. Perhaps there are restrictions that keep the cloud from being an option, or the customer has a strong need or preference for the product to be on premise. And in those instances where data is still needed, data is still important, we have a solution called high fidelity data export. And additionally, I want to take the time to mention, I touched on it when I introduced myself, but part of my role is I am overseeing the Data Warehouse Connect discontinuation. And so this should not be the first time that you've heard of that product being discontinued, but high fidelity data export is one of the options that we have in order to help kind of facilitate a transfer from Data Warehouse Connect to them still having a solution with Philips. And we've been talking about this for a little over a year. The discontinuation will end will start in 2026, at the end of 2026. And so if you do have a customer that is a Data Warehouse Connect customer, please don't hesitate to reach out to me or anyone else on the team if you want to discuss what product is the best product for them based on where they're located or what their needs are, and we can help figure out which solution is best for them. And all of their options will be the options that are discussed today. So please don't hesitate to reach out to me directly. And as far as high fidelity data export, this is a workflow model of what that new on-premise solution is. And this will help us serve our customers that can't access the cloud. So high fidelity data export gives us access to the data from both Philips and third-party devices through the PIC and via a customer provided SIM collector that runs on a virtual machine. We provide a pipeline directly to the data, or from the data to the customer storage site. And this data consists of waveforms, numerics, and alarms. And the data is buffered every 30 seconds in Avro format, which is an efficient storage and transmission format commonly used. And so the data can be used by healthcare professionals, researchers, and data analysts. And I do want to call out that if you're used to our beautiful visualization tools, so if you've seen like Alarm Insights Manager or Data Viewer before, this is not that. This does not have that kind of interface. This is just access to the data, and we don't offer any tools with this option beyond access to the data pipe. But of course, what they will get are rich data sets, access to the data, and the privacy and security scrutinization that Philips is known for. And then so how this will be priced, this product is subscription based. It's priced per bed per year with a one-time implementation fee of about 5,000 euros. And it's priced in 2 different tiers. So there's enterprise if you have above 500 beds, and then there's a base price, which is 499 beds or below. And the customer is responsible for providing one SIM collector and their on-premise storage. And so I will reintroduce Rishi to talk through our vision for Clinical Insights Manager.
Perfect. And I understand, before you go into the vision side of things, I understand that whole aspect of cloud, non-cloud aspect of it with high fidelity data export can get tricky, can get technical, right? So I've pasted a couple links in the chat, which is basically how the data is transmitted using Kafka and what format the data is transmitted using Avro. Read through it, happy to answer questions. So again, this is coming out end of this month, so July end. We are making this release. It's coming out of that. So, and just for context, we are working with few customers in the region, specifically one in Germany called Charité, and one in France, La Ribosère in France, who are actively helping us build this thing. They actually helped us, so it's built, it's done. We are just packaging it right now. So those customers will be the first ones that will probably go live on it fairly quickly. So with that one aspect of non-cloud done, let's kind of go into this angle of cloud, right? And the idea behind cloud was, I'll kind of reiterate this aspect that the customers kind of talk to us. That whole problem statement of the customers, right? The customers made the problem statements very clear. Number one, I need all data from all devices for all patient days spent in the hospital. And I need high quality data. It's not, I'm looking for snippets of it. I'm looking for high quality, 500 samples per second, waveforms, 1 second numerics and things like that. And hey, by the way, if you tell me, if it's a gigabyte of data per day for adults and 700 megabytes for kids, I don't want to take on the IT headache that comes with it, right? So it's funny. I was in Sweden talking to a customer, New Karolinska, right, which many of you must know, right? And this customer was like, okay, we have gone the on-premise route. We have put up the higher, costliest real estate out there, and we can't. We have realized that the IT headache that comes with storing data on-premise and managing it is hard. The customers are realizing this fast. So they're saying, give me the capability of this, getting this data without the IT drama that comes with it. And hey, by the way, if you, the first two buckets, the pink and the green bucket, is something that you as Philips are supposed to do anyways. What I am too concerned about as a clinician is how do I take this data and start to make use of that data, right? And that's where the third pillar, which essentially comes in to say, hey, can you now start to make use of this clinical data in the right context, right? So that's the whole intention of how we are setting up this whole bucket of data management. Capture the data, store the data with little to no IT headache, and then make use of the data. But the logical question is, so what is the use of the data? How are you going to use it? Right? So if you go back and ask the customers, they have usually a laundry list of this information of how they want to use the data. But in a broad brush, there are 4 buckets we are seeing. Right? The first bucket is simple from a sentinel event analysis type of thing, saying that, okay, if a patient incident happened 7 days back, I want to go back in time and really look at what exactly was going on with the patient when the patient died. How do I review that and really understand and learn from those aspects of it, be it for legal aspects or for quality improvement aspects? Plus, if I'm launching some protocol adherence type of things, that's number one. Number two, device industry created this whole idea of alarms, right? The constant beep beeps. How do I get to the point where I can understand what is the root cause of my heavy alarms in the ecosystem? And then start to deep dive and really figure out that should I be reducing the SpO2 alarm limits, or should I be doing more nurse education, or should I be changing my process to help it? The third one, which is common across many hospitals in the European region and few other regions that I've been working with, is research saying that, okay, now you give me high fidelity data. I am salivating to start to work on algorithms. I am trying to now train my machines on some aspects of these with this data and trends that comes with it. So I want to power my research using it. And last is the new kid in the block, which might or might not be relevant other than few markets in Finland and Sweden. That whole idea of telemetry, saying if telemetry is being used as a monitoring equipment for our ecosystem, how do I utilize the telemetry better? So this is important. These 4 buckets are important because if you get this thing in mind, you understand who you speak to when you try to go and position this solution out there. But also the next logical question from customers come in saying, so how do you guys do it, right? If you are claiming that you can make use of this data, how do you do it, right? So it's kind of a simple diagram here. I'll start from the left and go on to the right. A patient generating data by the bedside. That patient moves to the central station of Philips. The data is collected or basically aggregated on premise with a virtual machine. It's a lightweight virtual machine that aggregates the data. It then pushes the data to the cloud. The cloud for the European region is based in Dublin, Ireland. And I'll speak a little bit about cloud in my next slide, but that cloud is based in Dublin, Ireland. Off of that cloud, we drive apps. So the 2 apps that exist today as of 1.1 of SIM. The first one is called Clinical Insights Manager Viewer. And the second one is called Alarm Insights Manager. Jennifer and Meredith will go deeper into those. There's also APIs that's available on this. What is coming new is if you see that arrow on the top. So now we are able to get the data. So we acquired Capsule way back, a few years back in the Philips ecosystem, right? So we are able to get non-Philips devices data from the Capsule side. Today, we can get alarms data from the Capsule side into the ecosystem, but we will be able to get more. So there's a few things we are doing new in 2.0, which is coming out end of July. The first thing is there's a new platform. The platform is going native AWS. So we are launching a new platform. That's the first thing. The second thing that we are doing is launching our new kid in the block, right? The new app called Telemetry Insights Manager. So that's the third app in the ecosystem being launched. And the fourth thing that we are jumping into is now we are able to get numerics and waveforms into the cloud ecosystem for Clinical Insights Manager. Those still don't show up in the apps yet, but the data is being pulled into that ecosystem of the cloud. So I hope this provides you a context of how this cloud is set up. I'm sure you have a gazillion questions. So once I get off, I'll probably go back and try to see if I can help answer some of these questions. But a logical question might be coming into your mind is that, so what's about cloud? And why cloud is a choice? And funny story, 2018, 2019, I was visiting a hospital in the US, and I was pretty close to getting kicked out of the hospital if I uttered the word cloud, right? And now it was pretty much the same scenario, 22, 23 types in parts of Europe, but now customers are welcoming, right? So there are regions, specifically Nordics, Benelux, UK, and aspects of a few other regions that I'm seeing which are welcoming this angle of cloud. And not because it's something as a trend, right? It's not a trend. It's a strategic imperative, right? From a cost perspective, from a scalability perspective, it is hard. There's only so much you can do to carry the data in a USB and drive down the truck in the highway, right? You got to start to think strategically about it, and customers are getting that idea only if the regulatory aspect of it catches up. But from a regulatory angle of it, the markets that we go in, the logical question that comes in that, okay, why should we go with Philips? And why is Philips sort of designed to be our partner of choice from a security and compliance perspective, specifically when it comes to GDPR? So I joke with the team that had we not focused so much on privacy security, we could have built a fourth app on SIM by now, right? But essentially, I want to touch upon three big aspects of it. So as I mentioned, the cloud instance is based in Dublin, Ireland, right? Whenever we sign the agreement with the customer, we sign a document which is called data processing agreement, which basically says that the data will be based in Dublin, Ireland. Neither AWS nor Philips has access to your data, nor can they move the data from that region to some other place without the explicit permission of the customer. There are many other aspects of it in terms of how the data is stored and made secure, how is it compliant from a GDPR standpoint, and so on and so forth. Happy to engage with you on a customer-specific discussions if you have, but you also feel free to reach out to your privacy security office in the region too. But this is an important part. Like, no jokes, customers are serious about it. And if questions come in on a privacy security side of things, we have detailed descriptions on each aspects of it. So from a product perspective, what we have done is we have gone into details on it and kind of layered every aspect of what are the privacy security elements we are taking care of, or what kind of penetration we have done, how do we communicate the data, what about the networking aspect of it, what about multi-factor authentication. There's so many details, some of them get really boring, but important stuff for the customer side of things. So encourage you to read through it and understand it, and happy to engage in discussions on this. But that's the whole. I hope it gives you an idea on the cloud part of it, saying that how are we approaching the cloud? How are we trying to make sure that customers can use the data? But I'll hand it back to Meredith so that you can actually peel the onion, as I may say, right, to open up the apps and take a look at it. So Meredith, over to you.
Awesome. So we're excited to show you the apps. And you know, you cannot improve what you do not measure. And I love this statement because we established earlier that there's a massive amount of data being generated. But the ethos of our applications is that by gathering that data and leveraging visualization tools, we can help you understand your data and understand where you are and improve from there. But who exactly does the improving, or who exactly needs this product? And so we have developed some customer personas that we'll just introduce today lightly. And I'm sure they'll keep showing up and the conversation will get deeper and deeper, but we're hoping that by having these representations of customer personas that we can help you understand a little bit more about the customers, their needs, and be able to link them to consumers in real life, and understand the product, or the value that the product brings to them. And so the first app that we'll review is Alarm Insights Manager. And so the next three will go over the same format. We'll meet the persona, and then I'll pass it over to Jennifer, who will give you a live demo. And so first, let's meet Alarming Amy. Alarming Amy can hold many different roles, but ultimately she's responsible for overseeing the alarm management in her healthcare facility. She faces significant challenges with alarm fatigue, which is where just the sheer volume of non-actionable alarms can desensitize staff and potentially compromise patient safety. Amy's key concerns are ensuring that alarms are accurate and actionable, minimizing false alarms, and ultimately enhancing patient safety. But she needs a solution that can provide her with the detailed insights into the alarm data in order to help her identify patterns and the root causes of alarm fatigue. And so I'll pass it on to Jennifer to talk a little bit more about the app.
Hey everyone, so we're going to get into a demonstration of the Alarm Insights Manager. Can you see my screen okay with the transition?
Yes.
Okay, great, thank you. So this is the Alarm Insights Manager. It is a web-based tool. So as Rishi and Meredith had, spoken about Clinical Insights Manager earlier, this is a cloud-based solution and a web-based tool. So the customer would have this URL like we have at the top that is specific to them, and they would be able to sign on from any location. So that's really the advantage of these cloud and web-based tools, is no matter where the user is, if they're, within the confinements of however their hospital organization wants to work, they could sign on to these tools really from wherever they would like to. It's based on username and password, so very simple to access. And this is the main screen as soon as they would sign in. So you'll see on your left-hand side a variety of queries or KPIs. We've established those with working with many customers to really see what types of information that they would really want to dig into and find out more information when it comes to alarm management. So there's everything from leads placement to battery alarm load, which can be really a teaching moment for many of their clinicians in the way that they work and operate. Are they following best practices with lead placements, things like that. There's also areas of looking at, for instance, silence responsiveness. So are they silencing these alarms quite quickly? So we're not at a place where we're calling out the specific clinicians yet, but we can get the information down to the patient level. So based off of the information that comes through on certain dates and patients, they can make the inference as to who was their caregiver at the time, if they really needed to dig that deep for an educational moment. So across the left, you'll see these variety of different queries. Across the top, you'll see this data aggregation layer. And this allows you to really dig in deep to the information. Do you want to look at the data based on month, day, and week? Is it by unit? Do you want to get down to the patient level? Do you want to see labels? How do you really want to really look at the data? On the right-hand side, there's also some additional filters. So on top of all of that, we could work or look at one specific unit, all of the units. The customer or the user can look at severity. So if there's certain alarm types that they want to call out. Also kind, are these alarms being generated based off, instances with the patient? Are they being generated based off of the devices? Is there, pause and standby situations that are popping up? So a variety of different ways of looking at the data. There's also the time range. So you could look at a variety of different time periods just by selecting those on the calendar screen. We also have presets. So you could look at the last day, 2 days, 7 days, and 30 days. So we're trying to make it very user-friendly in a way that a user can really dig in deep. So in North America, oftentimes we'll see alarm committees. I know globally that can look a little bit different. Even within North America, sometimes there are not alarms committees, but there may be, multidisciplinary roles that come together that know that there's a lot of noise in the ICUs and the telemetry units and the acute care space. How do we bring that noise down? How do we make it a more silent and more healing environment? So utilizing tools like Alarm Insights Manager can really help to look at that root cause. Is the root cause because our clinicians need to be more educated? Or is there an education moment that needs to be happening? Are there settings on the monitors and the devices that we can alter, make more patient specific to bring down some of the alarms? Not every patient fits all of the sizes of the defaults that are set on many of these monitors. It's just like anything else. So how can we help them get this crystal clear picture as to what's going on in their units and environments and really help them make a difference? In the middle of this screen, you'll see the chart. So it's generated based off what I've selected in queries, aggregation, and the filters. But even within this chart, for instance, I'm looking at alarm silence responsiveness. So, and I'm looking at it by month and across the board and across many units. But if I was to want to dig in deeper and I wanted to look at, say, October, because the graph is showing it to be a little higher than the other months. If I click in there, I can also dig a little deeper, just similar aggregation as you could see at the top level. So if I click on that and say I wanted to look at the various alarms that are going on within that time period. So I can dig in deep to the data. We also have labels, meaning that we have it color coded based off of the alarm severity. So as you can see, there are a lot of cyan and that blue color alarm, which many of those, even some of the yellow alarms, are, kind of some nuisance alarms or alarms that we could really look at from a perspective of, what's going on within that unit and can we make some adjustments to either our equipment or to leads placement or whatever to bring down that alarm load. So this is the Alarm Insights Manager. I'm hoping you're really excited about having this option. We're very unique in having a solution where we can pull the data for alarm purposes and really dig in deep. We hear even in North America, some customers are trying to do it on their own. They're trying to pull this raw data and make it actionable, and it's really difficult. Now, the Clinical Insights Manager, as holistically as a application, is a retrospective data type of tool. So this is not a real-time tool. However, when I say retrospective, I mean that it is a 5-minute delay in the data that comes in. So it is something that they can make actionable, but I just wanted to make sure that I pointed that out. Also with Clinical Insights Manager, we store all of the data for up to 1 year in our cloud, which provides the opportunity for our customers and users to go back in time if you have a patient per se that has come in multiple times to look at various points in time. And here we can look at the alarms at different points in time and see and track progress potentially from looking at maybe taking a capture at 30 days, 60 days, and 90 days. With the Alarm Insights Manager, we also have the ability to create reports. So say this is a report you wanted to create and look at maybe on a weekly basis. By selecting this icon on the upper left-hand side of the chart, you can name and describe this chart and keep it. So as soon as you hit save, it populates as an option in this custom list. Now, I know there's a lot listed here from just my colleagues utilizing this tool. However, that list would be very specific to that customer or that user that would sign in. If they would like to email this chart to themselves, or maybe they're on an alarm committee where they have a bunch of people that are working together to solve the alarm problem, they can also automate that. So by selecting report at the right-hand side of the screen, and creating new, they can grab one of those charts or those custom charts that they've created. All they would need to do is interject with the email addresses of who they would be sharing this with, and maybe a message so it's a reminder or a call out when they get their emails. As soon as they hit create, they will get an email in their inbox, and it'll show them exactly all of the information that would be on that screen. So they'll see the chart levels, they'll see the variety of the different filters that were used so that they can track and maybe do some benchmarking activities on how their progress is going with maybe changing some certain parameters in their units. So thank you for your attention, and I'm going to turn this back over to Meredith to talk more about the Clinical Insights Manager Data Viewer.
Thank you, Jennifer. And so next we will meet, Incident Ingrid. Ingrid is a quality improvement specialist who needs access to high quality data for retrospective data analysis. She plays a critical role in conducting root cause analyses of sentinel events, which are patient safety events that result in death, permanent harm, or severe temporary harm. Ingrid's biggest challenge is accessing comprehensive and accurate data that spans long periods. She needs this data to identify contributing factors to incidents and implement preventative measures. Additionally, so this product, Data Viewer, actually has two customer personas associated. The second is Data Dave. Dave is a data guy. He could be a researcher or an analyst tasked with managing and integrating vast amounts of data. His primary responsibilities include ensuring data integrity, compliance, and data privacy regulations, and providing meaningful insights to the data to support his initiatives. Dave's challenges include dealing with fragmented data from multiple sources, maintaining data accuracy, and ensuring secure data transfer. He needs a solution that he can seamlessly integrate this data and provide reliable access for analysis. And so I will turn it back over to Jennifer to help talk about how Clinical Data Viewer can be the solution to these personas problems.
Thanks, Meredith. So we're going to get into the Data Viewer and take a look at the demonstration application that we have here. So similar to the Alarm Insights Manager, you're going to sign in with your username and password into the Data Viewer. This will be the initial screen that the user would see. So if they have patient-specific information, they can put in whatever they feel is applicable to be able to find that patient. We also have the ability to search within different enterprises. So if we were to select Hospital B, for instance, and select search, we would come up with a variety of different names that would pop up. So I'm going to take a look at Mary Maddox here and see what her profile looks like in the Clinical Insights Manager, the Data Viewer. So when we select this particular patient, there's a variety of different information that's going to be shown. So first of all, there is patient information. So we are pulling PHI, or that patient-specific information, from our data source, which our data source today is really PIC-IX. So we're pulling the patient information. However, we'll get into the export functionality. There's also some other places along the way where you could de-identify the data. So if this was used for research purposes per se, and the clinical researchers are looking to share the data with their colleagues or another hospital that maybe they're working on a research study with, they can safely transition and export that data without having the patient-specific information on there. But we do have in this first tile some information about Mary. On the second tile, it is focused on the waveform. So we're looking at the strip charts. In this, by selecting this button in the upper right-hand side, we can see the variety of different waves to choose from. So I always say less is more, just because the limitations of our Data Viewer screen, which we're hoping to launch a newer version so we can get rid of some of the limitations. However, the more that you select on the screen, it makes this a little bit more not as user-friendly, I would say, because you have to do a little bit scrolling. So in this particular version of the viewer, I would recommend less is more, but they can see whatever they want to look at, the variety of different waveforms, and put those on the screen accordingly so that they can have a good view. Now, we capture the data as soon as the patient is admitted, they're put on monitoring, and that data is flowing into PIC-IX. We are capturing that data. So from the time that that data is captured to the time that they're taking off of monitoring and we're no longer gathering that data, we're pulling all of the data. The advantage to that is in the electronic health records, oftentimes there's just snippets and small pieces of those waveforms that are shown within their record. The problem is if there's, say, a sentinel event, or even for researchers that are looking for some predictive arrhythmias that may be happening, they may miss a lot of that information by just focusing on that patient record. Here, we're capturing everything. So it gives a great opportunity for, in those situations specifically, they could go back and see, well, what happened when there was a larger scale event? What's going on? We see some, changes in the arrhythmias for this specific patient. Have we seen that in maybe a prior admission or in an earlier point in time of their current admission? This is a very patient-centric type of application. And the nice part about that is as long as the customer has Clinical Insights Manager, the data viewer on board, if you have a patient that comes in quite often, so maybe you had a patient come in, they had a very large scale event, but maybe they were in 2 weeks ago, having some symptoms, maybe chest pain, some, arrhythmias that were not, really making them at their best health level. And then now they're back with some either similar symptoms or worse. We can look back at that point in time and see what was going on with that patient. And we can look at their waveforms, their numerics, and even the alarms associated with that patient. We also have calipers. So if they want to do any kind of measurements from a user level, the speed can be adjusted and also the size. So if they want to look at this at a much larger scale, there's the opportunity for that. They can fast forward, go back in time, and just easily scroll through the data to be able to review. On the next tile, we're going to look at the data part that we're pulling in, the numerics. So this would be a lot more dynamic looking when it was in a live environment. But we can also look at different levels. So duration, we could look at different timelines. We could also look at the various scales. Again, this is retrospective data. So we're pulling the data in every 5 minutes from PIC-IX, from that SIM collector that Rishi spoke about. So we're not talking, next day, we're only talking about that 5 minutes, but we're not classified as a medical device, and we are not speaking to the customer that we are or that we're real time. However, it does provide them information very quickly that they can utilize. So as you can see, there's a variety of different data points and numerics associated with a lot of the devices that we're pulling in data for. The bottom tile here is alarms. So we are capturing all of the alarms that are associated with this patient. However, not as dynamic as the Alarm Insights Manager, of course. However, it does provide information on what they are. We do have it color coded to be able to track these very efficiently, and say we wanted to look at this alarm per se, then it would highlight those time periods and also within the waveform chart to be able to easily find that information. We have a timeline below, and then also the ability to fast forward in that timeline effectively as well. From an export standpoint, we have the multi-cloud integration built into Clinical Insights Manager. So with that, we realize and recognize that there are many customers that are not on Amazon. So we're Amazon Web Service, we're that AWS backing with Clinical Insights Manager. However, we know that some have Azure, some have Google Cloud. So we are able to export to S3 on Amazon Web Services, Google Cloud, and also Microsoft Azure. So whatever of those three, that's where we're compliant as far as being able to be compatible. If we were to do an export, this is the opportunity I spoke about to de-identify the data. but the customer and the user can utilize whatever parameters that they want to look at. So if they just want to look at waveforms and send those, if they want to look at, all of the information, they can make a decision as to how they want that sent and what information is sent. So a lot of the data files come through in a CSV format. The waveforms come in MIT PhysioNet. So many of the researchers and those that are really interested in exporting this data are really familiar with those formats. It's also password protected. So as it moves into those files, it does give them opportunity to have that second layer of security in signing in and pulling that data. Once you said, okay, that could be a manual export of the data. We also have the ability to automatically export the data. So if we go to this auto export in the upper right-hand side, and we select an institution that we're sending data from, as you can see, there are some schedules that we've created within our demo. So it would look very similar for the user. They would have an ID, their email as to who owns that and the frequency. They can edit or delete these at any time, which makes it very flexible. They can also create net new. Now today we're only have the frequency of daily. We are working on improving that to provide various times, but today it would be daily. And then they have username, or they have the password rather, and then the ability to select what data that they would like for data export. So it's a nice way for, if they know exactly what data they want to see on a regular basis, for that data to shift and to be exported directly to their cloud, their lakehouse, and then they're able to instantly have that data available to them. Here in the connector area is where we would make those selections. So if I was to look at this one that was already created and hit the edit button, it will work for me. You could see here that you can select between Azure, Amazon, and Google Cloud. And then all of the information as far as from a storage and account name would be placed there as well. To get back to the main screen, we would just hit click Clinical Insights Manager Viewer, and now we're back at our main screen. What I also wanted to note is that we also have Data Access API that's built into the Clinical Insights Manager. And it provides a great opportunity for the user to be able to query the cloud at a much more dynamic level. Many of those that are looking to the Clinical Insights Manager data viewer, especially from the research side, they really they're creating their own algorithms, their own programs in trying to really evaluate the data. So here we have the Data Access API and a variety of different APIs available, but we have this document that we can provide to customers to give them an idea of usage, the different areas, whatever they would like to use, certainly like C#, we have JavaScript, Python, as many of the common programs. So just give them an idea of how this looks and operates. And then we have, certainly some predetermined options that can help them as well. So Clinical Insights Manager viewer, the data viewer, you're going to get waveforms, numerics, and alarms in summary. The data is stored for up to 1 year. They can export either manually. They could also export in that automatic export. They will also receive this Data Access API option to help make their lives easier in querying the cloud. So I'm going to turn it back over to Meredith.
Thank you, Jennifer. And so our final, last but not least, is our final app is Telemetry Insights Manager. And so the customer persona that we want to introduce for Telemetry Insights Manager is Telemetry Tim. And Tim is responsible for the management of telemetry devices within his healthcare facility. His role is crucial for ensuring that telemetry equipment is optimally used and that patients are continuously monitored for any cardiac events. Tim faces challenges with the overutilization of telemetry, managing mobile telemetry devices, and the lack of comprehensive operational data. He needs a solution that provides visibility into telemetry equipment and patient monitoring status. And I can pass it over to Jennifer to talk about Telemetry Insights Manager.
Thanks, Meredith. So with Telemetry Insights Manager, as Meredith described, it is a tool more for that utilization of telemetry, meaning more of an operational side of things. So what we're finding here in North America, especially, is that, even down to the telemetry packs, those mobile packs and that mobile equipment, there are so many different tasks that whether we have telemetry technicians, we also have nursing managers and nursing staff that are managing not only the patients, but all of this equipment too. So how can we create a solution that helps them to know where their equipment is? Is it accessible? Is it available? Has it been lost? So we have some queries set up within this application that can call out how it's being identified. Now, Telemetry Insights Manager is a little bit different in the way it works and operates in that for the Alarm Insights Manager and for the Clinical Insights Manager data viewer, we require PIC C.03 and newer. For this application, we're requiring PIC 4 and newer. So we're going into the 4.2 environment right now. So we would really need that current version of PIC-IX in order to grab that data. On top of that, because within this application, we are also looking at orders. So for our customers, they're also really tasked with our orders current for telemetry. Do we have patients on telemetry in these various units that maybe had an order and it's now expired, or we're monitoring and maybe we shouldn't because there's not a current order for them? So, and that comes down to cost. Like telemetry, the whole telemetry area is a high cost center for so many different hospitals because of all the monitoring, because of all the care, the increased care from other general med surg floors. So they really want to know, what are they doing with their monitoring? How are they managing their equipment? But also, are these patients, should they be monitored? And if they are monitored, do we have current orders for that? But with pulling in orders, those orders are coming from the electronic health record. So we are partnering with IBE and being able to pull in that data from the electronic medical record. So we're pulling data from PIC-IX and we're marrying that with the IBE data that's coming based on orders to put that data into our cloud and then come into the solution. So this is also a web-based tool. They could sign on username and password. But there's a variety of different queries that run through just being able to track and utilize the equipment. We can look at patients that have an order, but maybe are not being monitored. So that's a huge problem in our hospitals that, patients should be monitored. Maybe they end up being placed in a different area at the hospital on a waiting period until a bed is available. So we want to make sure that those patients are transitioning to the proper care, the proper monitoring care properly. And then also from, those patients that, may not have an order and are taking up a bed space. We also have a query within this application that is really, we've gotten a lot of great feedback on, where we're capturing the alarm data in there as well. So what it does is it basically shows the different arrhythmias and alarms that are going off within a 24 to 48 hour period for that patient. What that does is it really helps the staff evaluate if patients should, maybe their order is expiring, do they need a new telemetry order? Is this patient getting ready to be discharged? If they're being discharged to home, do they need some telemetry or maybe monitoring at home and those type of devices? So it provides them the full picture of what's going on with the patient on top of what they have from their electronic health records to help them plan movement of patients, also plan the discharge of these patients as well. So you've gotten an opportunity to see the Alarm Insights Manager, Clinical Insights Manager, Data Viewer, and the telemetry. My apologies, we didn't have a live demo for that. Our demo had been down, so wanted to certainly at another point in time, we will go into that a little bit deeper. However, certainly recognize telemetry applications oftentimes vary across different regions. So if you have any questions or want to spend time to dig in deeper on a personal level, we can certainly, help and support and show you the demo, one-on-one or with your customers if there's interest. So we do have a variety of different packages, and we keep this very user-friendly so that we can really go after and really help our customers to meet their pain points. So if they're really I'm looking to focus on alarm management, I'm having alarm issues, we can sell them the Alarm Insights Manager application. Do they need, telemetry built on? We can either marry those together and have a bundle, or they can get the variety of different applications at different points in time. So this provides kind of that a la carte type of purchasing and quoting to bring on, these different applications that are applicable to their needs at that current point in time. The nice thing about the cloud solution is they can start off, say, with a Clinical Insights Manager data viewer, and then in time add the Alarm Insights Manager or add the Telemetry Insights Manager in the future. The way that it's quoted is there's an initial implementation cost. I believe it's about 10,000 euros. 10 euros, that would be great, right? 10,000 euros for that implementation. But what happens is it's really a one-time implementation that happens. So if the customer is even looking to add additional beds, say they start off with 30 beds and they want to have 50 beds, then they can add those beds without having to pay that implementation cost again. Now, we do have all of these applications set up in a pricing scale. So we have them from going from like 0 to 32 beds all the way up to 500 plus beds. And the more beds that the customer purchases at one point in time, the better pricing that they get overall. So it's kind of very scalable. They'll get a much lower price for that 500 plus beds than they will at the 32 bed price. So we have discounting built into those scales as well, which is really important to note. However, we realize some hospitals, especially different regions of the world, may be on the smaller scale. So, we certainly understand that. But as you have the implementation fee, you choose this and select the different applications based off of need. Now we have listed here a three-year contract, just an example. We've worked with customers in a variety of ways where they want to sign on for a year to give it a try and make sure it's good return on investment. And then we have others that are 10 plus years, maybe on these larger EMOS deals that we're doing here in North America. So that can be a variety of different factors there. And then we also, if the customer is on DWC, if they're on a C.03 or newer, we can also help them with migrating their data. So if they're looking to move from DataRust Connect to Clinical Insights Manager in the cloud, we can assist them with that. So we are really flexible with the core applications, the bundling. So we'll be rolling out those various packages to all of you, and also implementation. I also encourage you to lean on, your clinical specialists or those professional clinical services out there. Now, we don't have their fees or their services built into our packages. However, we highly recommend them because many of our customers not only want to be onboarded and understand how to use the application, they're looking to dig a little deeper, especially those outside of research. I would say the research folks, they're interested in maybe just grabbing that data. So they're looking at the high fidelity data export, for instance, because they just want the data, they don't want the apps. But talking about those clinicians, those that are looking at sentinel events, looking at risk analysis, those that are maybe looking at alarm issues and things like that, they will want to have, those individuals, on board to really help and support them. So if you have any questions about quoting, it's certainly a great way to partner with your HPM sales team as well, being in their catalog, and they've been used to working with this particular product a bit longer. They are also tasked with Clinical Insights Manager in the sales side as well. So it's really cool and exciting to have so many different sales teams working together with this particular product to really complement many of the things that are in your bag as well. So please reach out if you have any questions regarding these different applications, quoting, and how we can best help to serve you and your customers.
Perfect. Thank you, Jennifer. And also just to review that we do, and we are launching quite a suite of tools to be able to help you understand our products and talk to them with your customers. So we will have demos. We have a sales deck for you to use to facilitate conversations. We have an updated brochure that now includes Telemetry Insights Manager. All of our products have technical data sheets where you can get deeper onto the technical information of the products. We're also working through, we have videos for AIM, multiple videos available, and we have one for Tim that has just started going underway, as well as internal trainings, recorded demos. And so actually, because we didn't have the Tim demo today, I can share one in the follow-up email just in case we don't want to wait till the next training. And then also, you know, are you engaged with us on our, I guess, our Viva Engage page where we post updates consistently. So a lot of different avenues for you to find the information that you need, and they're all available on PAL, Seismic, as well as our Clinical Insights Manager tools page. And then so just a couple of key takeaways before we enter into the Q&A period of time. But just remember the high fidelity data is a big differentiator for us. And so no other hospitals or hospitals struggle getting this data, and other guest competitors aren't offering access to the data the way that we are. So that's a big differentiator for us. Making sure that we are vendor agnostic is really important. And so making sure that that's a part of the conversation is going to really help. Understanding exactly what the customer's problems are and how they relate to those use cases is going to be really helpful in helping you understand what products or what product can really help support that particular use case. And understanding who the people that we are talking to are. Just because it's a tech product doesn't mean that IT are the main people that we speak to or the main decision makers. They're not. We really want to focus on the QI leaders, the alarms committees, research groups, and now, you know, if we have someone that is over telemetry, we really want the telemetry parties to be a part of the decision making process. And then I guess I would open it up to Jennifer and Rishi if they have anything to add or big takeaways.
Yeah, I know that I failed to mention, not only do we store and keep this data in our cloud for up to 1 year, but it's a rolling year. So as that customer has Clinical Insights Manager and that data comes to their 1 year anniversary, that data is going to start to fall off unless that they, you know, put in place the export functionality of moving that data for longer term storage if they're interested. I mean, it doesn't, not one size fits all for everyone, but we do recognize that some do want to store. Also wanted to make note that we are releasing the 2.0 version at the end of the month. However, we do have the Alarm Insights Manager and the Data Viewer today in the 1.1 version. So we will be transitioning to that 2.0 version. But with that, we don't manage Clinical Insights Manager from a life cycle management perspective like you would see with other products. All customers that have this subscription on a price per bed per year basis, they will get all of the upgrades, all of the updates that we provide. So for instance, customer signs on with us for SIM 2.0. As we maybe bring a new data viewer per se in 3.0, just not saying that's going to happen, but just kind of throwing an example out there, they will get that new data viewer in 3.0. We will update and upgrade them as we have maybe bug fixes or new features that we're rolling out in different various times within the year. They will receive that information. Of course, we will contact both you and we will contact the customer, letting them know, hey, you're getting these great new features or your user interface is going to change a bit. So we will be in constant contact. So we're in the early stages of rolling out these various releases. However, as things progress, we have one major release usually per year and a minor release normally like around the holiday time. So look forward to those as well. But we want to assure you that from a customer level, they're getting that utilization of all of the updates and upgrades with their subscription as they purchase Clinical Insights Manager, regardless of the application. So I don't know, Rishi, if you have any further comments, but I know that was something I failed to mention.
This is really good. The only thing that I'll add to this is that, look, I understand it's not that straightforward, right? This was a lot of information in 1 hour or 1 hour 15 minutes that we spent today. I see some veterans on the call who have been with us and have heard us speak about this in the past. So of course, for them it's a refresher, but for some of them it's new. Engage with us, right? If you come across a customer, the three of us are not just sitting in Cambridge trying to push products out, right? If you got a customer, we are happy to speak to the customer, help you, support you in the journey. So engage with us, reach out, set up some time. If you want to go into details, absolutely happy to go into that. And if you have questions, you know where to reach us. So I don't have anything else to say. I mean, Jennifer Meredith did a great job covering things up. So.
And in case you don't know where to reach us, here are our email addresses, and they are open 24/7. So please don't hesitate if you have any questions that we don't answer today, or you have a question later on, please don't hesitate to reach out.
Great. Thank you so much, Rishi, Meredith, and Jennifer, for taking out the time and sharing such an interactive and engaging session with us today. I know, Rishi, you've answered many of the questions. Jennifer, you as well, you've been active in the chat, but I just want to also read them aloud so that anybody who's watching the recording, they also know, and maybe they have the same questions and then they get the answers as well. So I know there's a question from Jan. Are you working on a real hands-on training, like working, for instance, in Excel, bringing more knowledge to the video?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I was going to answer it. So yes, yeah, we are working on a customer-specific video where the customer sort of gets a handle of that. That's one more reason we mentioned that you should engage the clinical professional services aspect of it. Because if you look at these COEs, they have a very strong expertise on this. And they can actually handhold the customers to it. So we are in some of the discussions, what has happened is when we go into a customer site, we talk to them, the customer is like, okay, give me a sample data output file and I want to play with it. So that's the perfect way to just share that data file with the customer, that here's the numerics and alarms in CSV. Here's how you load it. Here's how you see it. Here are the waveforms in MIT PhysioNet. Here's how it gets loaded into a MATLAB, right? So happy to collaborate on that as well.
Yep, and on top of that, we also have some iPDFs that we've prepared for all of these applications. So it's a nice way for the customer to look through and really understand how the applications work and flow and operate just from the perspective of use. So we've put a lot of work into customer education this year, especially in Clinical Insights Manager. I know Meredith's done a lot of work as well for like education tools, but within even we consider you our customers as well. So we want to make sure that you're comfortable with having a lot of videos, tools, some hands-on items that you can really learn, but then also convey those to your customers as well and give them, to be able to make that right decision for them and seeing how our products really work and operate in their environment.
I think that would be really helpful, Jennifer. I know there was a question around the launch date of the product, and Rishi had mentioned that SIM 1.1 is already released and SIM 2.0 comes at the end of this month, and that is available across all geographies. Is that correct understanding?
Yeah, so there's a catch. The cloud version, if you remember a page that Meredith called out, cloud is available for specific regions. The non-cloud is available for all regions, right? So just want to clarify that part.
Okay. Yes, clear. I know there was also a question around, because you talk about cloud, what is the condition to enable cloud for a region or a particular district?
Yeah.
And maybe if you have some insights in talking about some of the difficult regions, for example, DACH, where we have a lot of regulations, around cloud and where the data is hosted and so on. And maybe you've encountered that before as well, but maybe if you can throw some light on that.
Yeah. So DACH and France, France is a different space altogether, but DACH specifically, there's active discussion going on with privacy security to have few customers conversations. For example, I know there was a tender that came out of University of Bonn, and I think there are a couple of those who released a tender in DACH, and they were like, "Oh, we are looking for cloud EMR and CM type of systems," and that was interesting for the market to hear, right? So customers are gravitating towards it, but the idea is some of the vendors who have done it right in DACH have gone through a local German consulting company, right? And so we are working with the markets to really understand what will it take for us to release a cloud version for DACH. It is for sure there are two factors in this. The first factor is the economic factor, wherein saying that are there enough customers to warrant an instance of AWS in Germany itself? That will not serve Switzerland and Austria. It's kind of a different story, but at least Germany will it serve that. Or the second aspect is that then what do we need to be prepared other than what we already have from a privacy security to get few marquee customers up on board? So a lot of work going on this, watch that space. The other markets, some markets were blatantly told us, like France, for instance, told us that if it's not a French cloud, we're not going for it. As simple as that, right? And that's a tough one. Given that from a Philips perspective, we are AWS native, it's a tough one for us, and we got to bow down, but then we got to deliver to the customer. That's why high fidelity data export was launched as well for those customers who cannot get onto cloud, right? Netherlands is okay with it. I'm like, it's also, it really varies. If you, in general, see that you're enough customers in your market who are interested in cloud, give us a call. Let's sit down, work the numbers, and see if it makes sense. If it does make sense, then I don't see a reason why not.
Yeah, so reach out to the team if you do see a strong business case in your market. There was a question from Steve. You said that customer is responsible for hosting or running a Kafka cluster. Is that correct? And do you find that it is a barrier to adoption?
Yeah. So it's not actually, that's the reason we went to with Kafka specifically, because it's an open source. So there's no cost to customer. Essentially, it's open source software. And it runs a virtual machine on Linux, again, an open source side of things. So the customers we have worked with have not. But what we're also doing is we are releasing a step-by-step document that explains to the customer how to install and set up the Kafka suite.
Okay, great. There's a question that says, if the customer does not have a virtual server with the SIM cloud, is it possible to use a physical server? So
I think this question came from Japan, if I'm right. So
yes, you're correct.
While we were doing the session, we got an email from Yasuharu-san, and we are setting up time with him to go into details on what exactly. So we have a clear idea from a Data Warehouse Connect transition for Japan. So Meredith will be working very closely with Yasuharu and go through those aspects of it. Japan is another different aspect of virtual machines. So we'll deal with that.
Okay, perfect. And I think there were other questions also from Yasuharu-san, because does AIM have the ability to compare with other hospitals? You're on mute. Sorry, Rishi.
That helps unmute it, right? So not today. It does unit level details right now, but if you set up an enterprise where multiple hospitals become part of one enterprise, then nothing stops you from doing that comparison. So it's about how you set up that virtual machine.
Okay, perfect. So I think we've answered a lot of the questions. I know there are some specific questions around geographies, like the is cloud available also in Australia, but I think you have all of those details in the presentation deck that we will be sharing afterwards with everyone. So the availability.
Any questions on the call?
Features.
Any questions on the call right now? Anybody wants to open up the mic? Going once, twice, thrice.
Well, then if I would like to call to attention that I did just drop in the chat a quick survey. It's only